The wind came down from the hills smelling of dust and sage, pressing against the barn doors the way it always had, the way it always would. Caleb Holt leaned his forearm against the fence and watched the cattle drift toward the trough, their hides darkening as dusk settled over the ranch. 47 years old, hands permanently cracked, shoulders stooped by work and grief, he looked older than the land he tended. The land endured. He barely did. It had been 12 years since the night the sheriff's car rolled up his driveway, headlights cutting through the dark like knives. 12 years since the words accident, river, no survivors turned his world into a hollow echo. 12 years since he buried an empty coffin and learned what it meant to keep breathing while everything inside you stopped. He had not remarried. He had not moved away. He had not forgiven the world for taking Mara. Caleb lived with her ghost in every corner of the house. Her boots still sat by the door, leather cracked but shaped to her feet. A chipped blue mug she loved rested in the cupboard, untouched. He told himself he kept these things because someday he would be strong enough to let them go. The truth was simpler and crueler. Letting them go felt too much like letting her die all over again. That afternoon had started like any other. A fence needed mending. A calf had been born too early and needed tending. The sun had moved across the sky in its slow, indifferent way. Caleb had just finished washing his hands at the pump when he heard a car. Visitors were rare. Everyone in town knew Caleb Holt kept to himself. The sound of tires on gravel made him straighten, irritation flickering before curiosity replaced it. A dusty sedan pulled into the yard, its paint faded, engine ticking as it stopped. The driver's door opened. A woman stepped out first, young, maybe mid-20s, nervous energy in the way she smoothed her skirt. Then the back door opened. Two girls climbed out. They were maybe 10 years old. Identical, like mirror images, from the dark braid hanging over one shoulder to the cautious way they scanned the land. They stood close together, hands brushing, as if the world beyond the car might blow them apart. Caleb felt something shift in his chest. Not pain exactly. More like pressure. He didn't know why until one of them looked up and met his eyes. They had Mara's eyes. The world tilted. Caleb gripped the fence to keep from falling, his breath stuttering. He told himself it was coincidence. Plenty of people had brown eyes flecked with gold. Plenty of people tilted their heads the way Mara used to when she was curious. Plenty of people smiled like that. The girls walked toward him, the woman following, calling out a polite greeting that barely registered. Caleb could hear his own heartbeat roaring in his ears. They stopped a few feet away. Dust clung to their shoes. The taller one swallowed hard, then spoke. "Daddy." The word struck him like a physical blow. Caleb staggered back, his heel catching on a rock. The fence rattled as he grabbed it again, his vision blurring. "That's not funny," he said hoarsely, though no one was laughing. "You've got the wrong man." The girls exchanged a look. The shorter one's eyes filled with tears. "We don't," she whispered. "Mama said you'd look like this. She said you might not believe us." Caleb shook his head, denial rising sharp and desperate. "My wife died," he said. 12 years ago. You shouldn't be here." The woman stepped forward then. "Mr. Holt," she said gently. "My name is Rachel. I'm a social worker. We've tried to contact you before, but the letters were returned. When I finally found this address, I thought it was better to come in person." Caleb barely heard her. He was staring. At the girls, at the familiar curve of their noses, the faint dimple in the left cheek that Mara had hated but he adored. "Where is she?" he demanded suddenly, voice breaking. "If this is some kind of sick joke, tell me now." The girls flinched. Rachel placed a hand on each of their shoulders. "Their mother is in the hospital," Rachel said. "She's been there for years. Comatose." The word rang hollow. "That's impossible," Caleb said. "She was identified. The sheriff." "There was a mistake," Rachel said quietly. "The accident was real. The car went into the river. But Mara was pulled out downstream hours later. Unconscious, with severe head trauma. She had no identification. By the time she woke, she had no memory of who she was." Caleb's knees buckled. He sank onto the fence rail, breath coming in ragged gasps. "She was pregnant," Rachel continued. "Doctors didn't know until months later. She refused to give the babies up. She named them Lily and Rose. She told them stories about you. About the ranch. About a man who loved her so much it hurt." The girls nodded, tears streaking their faces now. Lily stepped forward and held out a folded piece of paper. Mama wrote this, she said. She said if anything ever happened to her, we were supposed to give it to you. Caleb's hands shook as he took it. The handwriting was Mara's. He would have recognized it anywhere. Caleb, if you are reading this, then something has gone wrong. I am so sorry for the pain you must have lived through. Please know I never chose to leave you. I tried to remember. I always tried. These girls are your daughters. They are my miracle. They are you. Love them the way you loved me. I hope someday I can come home. M. The letter slipped from his fingers. Caleb pressed his hands to his face and sobbed, the sound tearing out of him like an animal wound. 12 years of grief poured out in that moment, soaking the dirt at his feet. He felt small hands touch his arm. It's okay, Daddy, Rose said softly. We're here. The weeks that followed blurred together. Rachel handled the legal maze. DNA tests confirmed what Caleb already knew in his bones. Lily and Rose were his. The ranch house, once silent, filled with footsteps and laughter and arguments over chores. Caleb learned how to braid hair with clumsy fingers, how to cook something other than beans, how to listen. At night, after the girls were asleep, he sat alone at the kitchen table and stared at Mara's mug, his heart aching with a new kind of hope that terrified him more than grief ever had. He visited the hospital for the first time on a cold morning when frost clung to the windows. Rachel warned him it might be hard. She didn't warn him it might be impossible. Mara lay still in the bed, her hair streaked with gray, her face thinner but unmistakably hers. Machines hummed softly around her. Caleb stood frozen in the doorway. Hi, Mara, he whispered. It's me. He talked to her for hours. About the ranch. About the girls. About the life they could still have. He told her he wasn't angry. He told her he was waiting. Months passed. Seasons turned. Lily and Rose settled into school, their roots sinking into the land as if they had always belonged there. Caleb laughed more than he cried, though sometimes he did both at once. One spring afternoon, the hospital called. Caleb arrived breathless, heart pounding. A nurse met him at the door, smiling. She woke up, she said. Caleb walked into the room slowly, afraid of shattering the moment. Mara's eyes were open. They found him, focused, filled with confusion and then something else. Recognition. Caleb, she whispered, her voice thin but real. He crossed the room in 2 strides and took her hand, pressing it to his cheek. I'm here, he said. I never left. Tears slid down her temples. I dreamed of you, she said. Of 2 little girls running through fields. He laughed through his tears. They're waiting for you, he said. They call me Daddy. Mara smiled, weak but radiant. Good, she said. You always were. When they brought Lily and Rose in, the girls hesitated only a moment before running to the bed, climbing carefully beside her. Mara wrapped her arms around them as best she could, sobbing openly. Caleb watched, his heart so full it hurt. The past had not been erased. The pain had not been undone. But something stronger had grown in its place. That night, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Caleb stood on the porch of the ranch house, his family inside, laughter drifting through the open windows. The wind moved through the grass, carrying the scent of sage and home. For the first time in 12 years, Caleb Holt believed in miracles.